Behind the glitter of Chrisley Knows Best, there's a story of loss that never truly healed. A story of love that never reached the altar. Of a young man with a bright future, and of a family now living with a wound that may never close. Today, we dive into the most emotional confession from Todd and Julie Chrisley, nearly 2 years after the tragic death of Nic Kerdiles, their daughter Savannah's former fiancé, who was killed in a motorcycle crash. A confession they may only share once before closing that door forever. Nic Kerdiles wasn't just a former NHL player. To the Chrisleys, he was family. He entered Savannah's life in 2017. Their young love felt so real that by 2019, they were engaged. Todd himself once said, "I wanted them to be married. I wanted grandchildren from them." But fate had other plans. In 2020, the engagement ended. Here's what few people know. Even after the breakup, the bond never disappeared. Todd still had lunch with Nic. They still exchanged messages, sometimes thousands a day. Nic wasn't just the ex-fiancé. To Todd, he was like a son. Then came September 2023. In Nashville, around 3:30 a.m., Nic rode his motorcycle. A sudden collision with a BMW ended everything. Nic died at just 29. The autopsy revealed devastating injuries, severe head trauma, broken bones, and alcohol in his system. For Savannah, her world collapsed. For the Chrisleys, it was the loss of someone who had been part of their family, even if no longer by title. For nearly 2 years, Todd and Julie said nothing. Not a word. Fans asked, tabloids speculated, but Todd chose silence. Until August 20th, 2025. On their podcast, Chrisley Confessions 2.0, with a heavy voice, Todd said, "It's been so painful for me. I wasn't ready to talk about it. I'm not even ready today, but out of respect for Nic and the love we have for him, I'll have this conversation one time, and I'll never talk about it again. A promise. A boundary between private grief and public curiosity." Todd continued, "My heart has not healed, and I don't know if it ever will. For him, Nic's death was the hardest thing I've ever dealt with in my life, even harder than the legal battles that landed him in prison." Imagine this. Todd first learned of Nic's death while serving his sentence in a Florida prison. During a family visit with Savannah, Grayson, and Chloe, he was told the young man he once considered a son was gone. It wasn't just loss, it was heartbreak delivered through steel bars and prison walls. To Todd, Nic was a young man with a future that should have been long and bright. He described him as one of the finest, funniest, kindest young men. He wished he could have seen Nic marry Savannah. He wished he could have held their grandchildren. But now, all that remains is the haunting phrase, "What could have been?" Julie, too, spoke up, something she rarely does. Her words reminded everyone that this grief isn't just Todd's burden. It belongs to the whole Chrisley family. Now, almost 2 years after that tragic morning, Todd and Julie have finally spoken. Not for sympathy, not to stir gossip, but as one last gesture of love, a tribute to Nic Kerdiles. And after this, they will never speak of it again. Because for the Chrisleys, Nic never truly left. He lives in their hearts, in their memories, and in their prayers for the rest of their days. For Todd and Julie Chrisley, Nic Kerdiles was never just part of their past. He is the wound that won't heal and the love that never dies.